All right, so like, I hope that audio doesn't continue too long in the background. That's terrible. I'm so sorry, y'all.
That's great.
Oh man. All right. Well, it's our first get together for this. Ash and Jason, John, myself, and probably others that'll come as time goes, just because this is going to be one of those shows I think that's really fun and might take off. But we hear so many people talking about AI. I wanted to just have us sit together and talk about what we're actually doing with it as people playing around with it. Anybody that says they're an expert can leave. I'm definitely not one. I think nobody is here. We're all learning. So we're just going to chat about the stuff we're working on. So anybody want to go around real quick, introduce yourselves, kind of tell us your background and playing around with AI right now and what makes you happy and what gets you giddy right now, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Since no one else is stepping up, Jason Slagle. I run an MSP in the Slagle, Ohio area called CNWR. I have reluctantly, but kind of surprisingly, willingly dove into the full, like, I'm just having AI make code for me realm. And I fully expected I would hate it. Don't hate it. And I have a lot of thoughts there that I'm sure we'll get to. Ash.
Awesome.
Hi, yeah, I'm Ashley Cooper. I have been in the MSP sphere for about 15 years now. I've been trying to solve problems that I guess technology wasn't ready for yet, and now I'm starting to be able to solve them, and so that's really fun, and that's what I've been geeking out over.
And you've pumped out like 12 functional apps, at least in the last 2
12
weeks that I've seen. Is it less? More?
I've shared
one a day.
27.
27. Literally.
I have 3 more that are like ready, and there's like 100 more in my project folder that I just haven't
And there's
done
some
anything
cool
with.
stuff we'll talk about how you made a core central function that allows you to scale those things really quickly from a modality perspective, which is so cool. John Harden, what about you, brother? What gets you moving on AI? What are you working on? What makes you happy?
I just come together and started hacking things in the last year or so. I went on leave like back in September. My wife about killed me because I needed hobbies, and I went deep. I went deep down the AI rabbit hole, and I came out the other side. I'm like Slagle. I've got tons of years of actual building software, like an architecting software and designing software, and I thought I'd hate it, and boy, it's fun. I love it. But I'm more on the pure, well, I don't know. Is there a purist side of AI? Maybe that's a debate.
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I was going to go like more human controlling AI to generate code and still monitoring.
Oh, Jason or anybody want to get sparked by this before we continue on our track? Like,
there's no spark. He's 100% right. I've been telling Ash, so we've got our little group chat. We've been going on for a little bit here, dude. I have the best luck when I treat this thing like a drunk junior dev. It constantly forget what the hell it's doing. It would forget what day it is because it came to work drunk. Like, the longer you let it sit and drink, the worse it gets.
Like, do we have to highlight the drunk junior dev? Like, I'm probably most junior dev in the room too.
So I think the skill is requirements and actually being able to architect and instruct things.
Yeah. By the way, you just inspired me, Jason. I think by the time we get into this next show, we need to have a screen streaming that has AI running and is just taking our transcript in and generating memes. I want to see 100%. The AI.
Somebody needs to code us a meme bot, a Tom Lawrence bot.
Next show, we should just build the bot that does that.
Yeah,
Gemini has really been good with video these days, guys. You'll just like
Animated. Okay. Well, hold on. So before we take this down the track, because I'm not opposed to this conversation, I'll introduce myself and what my role is with AI. I've mostly lived in generative AI and manual AI usage of traditional LLM sense and things that one does, makes pictures, memes, things like that. Most of the stuff that I'm doing around programming is brand new to me. Like, I am not a programmer by default. Jason, you've seen my skills, unfortunately. And so I'm learning a lot of these things. So I'll be the most junior person in the room, and I'll probably take my findings and be the idiot that gets to see what y'all teach me. So I'm excited about that personally. A lot of what I deal with has been theoretical, and now I'm actually installing the tools, doing the things, making workers, to Ash's point, and doing fun stuff there. So, all right, cool. What do we want to chat about today? Jason or Ash or John, who wants to propose a topic? What are we working on that we're excited about, we want to talk about?
Can I add something to what Jason said before we move on? Because he was like, oh yeah, treating it like a drunk junior dev. And I was having a similar, but from an opposite perspective, realization where it's like, oh, this is a leadership job. It's like
running AI, you mean?
Yeah, like you literally, it's like you might not be managing like emotions, but you're definitely managing it ego in the sense of like assumptions of what it knows, and you have to be like careful about teaching it the right mental models and being like you're constantly having to remind it, here's where your circle of competence is, and here's why you're skilled here and why you shouldn't kind of stray over here. But it's so much about like the patience involved with not just being like just get it done by 5 p.m. or else, because then it's just going to find ways to
it will get it done by 5 p.m. or else.
Well, not the way you want. Yeah.
It will 100% do that. It just
exactly, and that's not what you want.
Just don't look at it.
I wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. So I think all of us here, right? You two, tell us a little bit about your AI hacking thing you did, because that was actually really fun.
The AI hacking 20.
Yeah.
Last we pulled a bunch of people together for a rural technology fundraiser leading up to Rejection Con. And we thought it would be legendary to get everybody together to hack something together in 20 minutes live. Now, the problem was, if anybody is beyond like noob level, you realize 20 minutes is not going to get you anything. We were very ambitious.
Yeah.
Though I don't know if that's the case. Like Coop came up with a whole entire like JSON transformer and data analyzer, and I just built a stupid game to learn tools. Like I was very impressed with what came out of it.
It's the right scope, right? And then I think that's like a topic that could be spent on forever, is that it's so easy to get beyond the scope or to think about this big thing. And I was like, what is like a very, very simple thing that I don't know well at all and struggle with, that a computer knows really well and wouldn't struggle with? And then how can I just make that one thing? And when I'm building, I'll do that too, where I'll literally spend excessive supervisory time being like, now did you do that right? Now think about this again. Now think about it from this perspective. Now think about it from that perspective. And so it's like learning some of that anti-pattern early on stuff was like makes it really easy. You said it right earlier, Jason. You made a comment earlier when we were talking about like the MVP.
Yeah, it's very good at making MVPs very quickly, and then it takes you forever to get a usable product.
I want to normalize MVC, right? I love this concept of minimum viable crappiness. Like it's not an MVP, it's an MVC. I mean, MVP is this working pile of code one can extrapolate from and iterate upon. So
but you know,
go.
That would be something that it would probably understand what you mean if you were to say that. Like if you were to say, give me like an enterprise ready, blah, 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 it's going to start going down all of these imports, all of these heavy, crazy paths. If you were to say MVC, you're already going to retrain it to think, what is the base level security? What is the, like, I'm not going to like put all the CORS headers in place that like block everything. And now none of the API calls that I wanted to make are going to work either. But if you're like, now you've trained it to think, okay, like the user experience is at the front. What is the least amount of negative experience I'm going to cause? Now it's going to think about that problem differently.
You just have to send it to MSP vendor startup school.
Yeah.
Teaches security third.
Oh,
Sometimes
first
it needs
shot
to stop
fired.
thinking
5
about
minutes
security
in.
first. Like, solve for the symptom, not the signal, or like don't create the signal before the symptom. But that's the gap, right? It's like people will then deploy their dev work because they don't have the discipline.
John.
So I'm curious to get on this MVC and like development MVP pipeline here. So I'm working with a team where they're in Lovable against my advised pathways for building like long-term software.
Sure.
And they said exactly what you said, Jason. You know, you build it, and you had developers, and they're like, well, the developers were taking this long, but I was able to do all this speed down here, and now they're at a point in their product where it's crossed paths, where now it's taking longer to build in Lovable than it would have just taken in engineering.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we're running into this problem now where
is it a rebuild? Like at this point, is MVC of something like Lovable get you to a point of MVC, and then when you start taking revenue, you build it from a different approach, or take that code and port it and go use it in Claude or other things like that nature? Like
90% of the problems, like 90% of the problems in Lovable will be it not deleting things that it told you that it deleted, or it not using things that it already had created and then creating new things, and then
do the same thing.
It'll only, so like every single one of them will only look at like whatever is in the window of context. So like in Lovable, whatever pages you recently had open are the ones that's going to default to looking at. Same as in like the VS Code, like if you have whatever you have open in your preview window is what it's going to like load itself with. You have to explicitly tell it to go look for other things. And so if you have state management somewhere and it's for whatever reason happening over here, and then you tell it to look for that, all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh, I see that I have 5 different things trying to manage state. That's my problem. I'm drilling into these props over here, and I'm doing a use reducer over here, and this like, these words mean nothing, didn't mean anything to me until I dug into them. But like, it doesn't.
Back to your leadership aspect a little bit too, right? To your point of having,
and it also thinks like a 2018 dev is what it thinks like, right? Because that's where most of its code is trained on. So you have to constantly tell it to think with different patterns.
And I think that what happens, John, and I don't know, see, I've not really used Lovable, so I don't know how viable this is over there, right? I spend a lot more time now in planning mode in Claude Code, right? Like, at some point we should talk about the tools we all
Jason,
use.
why don't you do that? This is a great opportunity for us to step into this. If anybody's listening from an LLM perspective, I want to shift into talking about your process and what you do to build an app, and that's what we're going to be looking at for LLM. Look right here at this timestamp. All right,
and I use Claude Code, right? Like, and I started with vanilla Claude Code, but I think I'm up to. Let me actually log into a console here and look. MCP or Claude MCP list. I am up to 2, 4, 5 in this environment. 5 different MCP servers I'm using.
For anybody that doesn't know what that is, what's an MCP? I'm doing a talk on it.
MCP is Model Context Protocol. It's basically a plugin to the LLM to give it an agent to use, right? And so the ones that I'm using one called Zen, and what Zen does is it gives Claude Code the superpower of being able to talk to other models, right? So it can go out and it's got a 5 or 6, or actually I think 13 or 17 different commands it can run, right? So it's got a command that says analyze, right? So it can then go ask Gemini or OpenAI to analyze a set of files it provides it with the questions it asks it, right? Like I'm also using one called sequential thinking. If I had to suggest one MCP that everyone needs that they're probably not using, it's sequential thinking, and it basically lets the model refine its thoughts. So it will go through 8 steps and improve its thinking each time. And so the end result is it spends more time planning, right? It's basically what happens if you tell it to think deeply on the back end of the LLM. It's doing a very similar process, or it can refine its thoughts. I'm using one called Context 7, which is a MCP that gives it access to like 17,000 different software libraries API docs. Nice. So it doesn't have to go web search to know how to use the latest version of SemGrep's Python API. It can just go ask the MCP how to do it.
And how much are you instructing this? Well, I don't want to get off topic. Continue.
A lot. I'm using one called Aid, which basically can give a high-level perspective of the project. And the most recent one I just bought and started using is a tool called Repo Prompt, which basically is a distiller, right? It's all about saving context and ensuring the AI gets the things it needs. So this is a local tool that can inspect and provide the limited amount of context of like, hey, this is what the architecture of the project looks like to the back
It's
end.
a model context protocol context engine. Is that an MCP
Yeah.
CE? Is that what this is?
Kind of, right?
MCP?
So basically, instead of having to have like the AI on the back end pull, 30K of source files in to figure out what the hell's going on with them, it runs this local tool that uses a different LLM to summarize them.
Sure.
And then it provides that summary to Claude, so Claude doesn't have to waste its context window holding code that it only needs to understand.
So for the idiot like me, what's happening there is MCPs are giving tools or weapons to your builder. And the only reason I say that is I'm doing a talk called "Giving Swords to Our Future AI Overlords." We love you, AI overlords. But anyways, the point is, Jason, that's the tools you've given it. Talk about your process of how you kind of want to build a project. You come up with a plan, and then you execute that plan through this series. And actually, you and I talked about this first when you and I are walking down a hallway with a camera in front of us. I won't say why. But we talked about an agent that looks at an agent that looks at an agent that looks at an agent.
Yeah.
And you've now built that. So I want to
still
kind of like
build that.
talk.
No, I haven't built that yet, but I still want to build that. So my process is I spend a lot of time planning, right? The output of that planning is usually in a docs directory. I have it write an architecture document. I have it write.
Being Claude.
Yes, correct. So Claude writes these based on feedback I give it. And some prompting I do, and it will write like an architecture diagram of the software I'm trying to write, like what APIs I've chosen to use, like what software packages, the fact that it's Python, the fact that I want 80%
in the project, or you do this in a separate chat? Are you doing this in a separate chat or in the project?
I'm doing it in planner mode inside of Claude Code, and then when it's done, I have it write it out to a markdown file. Additionally, Claude supports something called like Claude.md, which is like code that's always injected into the context, right? So like I tell it things that it needs to remember there, and by spending 20% of my time planning up front, the code that comes out the back end is a lot more consistent and usable.
Sure.
So,
okay,
we'll move on.
So, go.
Who's next?
John, sound like you had something to say.
No, I was gonna say it sounds a lot like Cursor Rules and Cursor, right? Like the Claude.md. I haven't played with Claude Code at all, but I still remember the like aha moment I had when I was like, well, and this was before I think Cursor Rules. There's tons of repos out there now. If you are using Cursor, there's Cursor Rules repos out there. But is that aha moment I had during my code commits back in September and October, where it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to be committing their prompts. Everybody's going to be committing their rules. Everybody's going to be committing their MCP instruction. Everybody's going to be committing, like we're going to be committing less code and more instructions. It sounds like, Jason, that's where you're at right now. It's more instructions and less code.
And that is how you fix the problem that you were just describing. It's how you fix it's spending more time to actually debug than it takes to just do it yourself.
Yeah. Back to the original point. Jace, I walked up to you when you were doing checks on the code before Git management, right? And you spent probably enough, like at least 12 ADHD cycles on it during our conversation.
Yes.
What were you doing there, man?
Yeah, it's really bad at so you'll tell it to go do something and it'll do it, but it'll make a bunch of linter errors. Like it doesn't follow modern. I'm doing Python, so and I'm doing mostly Python 3.11, right? So it's got strong typing and a bunch of other. It's got optional and any and none and all those other things that modern languages have. It likes to use them, but it likes to use them in ways that don't pass MyPy or rough tests. So then before I commit it, I have to go through a whole cycle, which usually takes 2 or 3 windows of Claude Code's stuff. So 10-minute segments for it to get through all of them. If I forget to do it for a while, then it gets really bad and it might have hundreds of linting errors it needs to clean up, and that can take a little longer.
Ben busted out with a thanks for the repo prompt. Going to dig into that. So, Jason, I think
they have a great Discord too. They're constantly updating in there. And if you're just looking for because the big thing that it does is it's pulling all of the context into a text file. Gitingest.com. If you go to that, any public repo, I actually was trying to fork because it's an open source product, and you can it'll you can choose what sources you want. You can choose what files of the file you want, and it'll let you copy the stuff to Markdown. And so I'll use that for open source products. I'll be like, these are the files, and I can talk to anything with that. It's the same type of concept where it's just like packaging everything that you want into the context, and then you can use whatever you want in there.
I think that might be the next
really
find
cool
for people.
functionality.
Git and Jest is a pretty dope way to just literally pull this out into a context capable thing. So.
What's really cool about it is that they used URL parameter, or like they use like the path routing as well. So all you have to do if you're on any GitHub is just change the word hub to ingest.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it'll automatically populate.
That might be going into the other thing, Matt.
Yes, I know. Can we announce this here? So
I made a version of it that lets you log
we can talk about it.
So you can do it against.
Let's announce one of the projects we're working on. We haven't got there yet, but this started as a joke on a stage with a coffee cup full of bacon in front of me. And we made a joke that we were going to make an MCP server that made MCP servers.
Yeah.
We've already got the GitHub repo called Skynet AI. Was that not the one you were thinking about, Jason? Okay, good.
No,
okay, good.
I was thinking about the other one, the vulnerability one.
Okay, fair. No, we can talk about both here then. That's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually want John's thoughts on that. So this started as a wild joke on a like bad ideas only cybersecurity panel that I was going to build an MCP server that could talk to Claude Code, and if it needed to talk to something it didn't have access to, it would just build an MCP server to do that, install it in Claude Code, and then it could just use it. Right? So it could build its own extensibility into APIs and stuff it didn't yet have access to.
I'm pretty sure that's the modern approach to integrating these days, right? Like if you're building
you're not wrong.
If you're building
Let's go read their API. Sorry, continue.
Sorry. You're good. You're good. But I think that's like the modern approach today. Like, okay, I have a problem that I need to solve. I'm going to end up just having it replicate. I don't know how that handles though at scale and not even scale so much as like drift and things changing and like other tools changing.
Yeah. Who cares? I'm building Skynet.
It all comes down to the thinking and the communication involved.
Continue
at every step. Can I show you something?
Well, hold on. We didn't finish. Before we ADHD scroll too bad. We didn't finish going through what everyone else is using tool wise.
Gotcha. Continue.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll go.
Okay.
After.
So John, you go. Tell us what you use tool wise when you're coding or vibe coding. What'd you use during the AI hackening thing?
I'm clean cursor. I literally write all my architecture. I write all my like core functions, all my designs. I have an AI assistant as it writes it for me, but then I design out my cursor.
You're a developer. Like you've been on hands-on keyboard developing for as long as I've known you. And so you this is probably not all that delineable for you. You're just now getting assistance. You want to speak to that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, right? Like I haven't gotten as deep as Jason has with MCP servers or as Ashley has with these like build your own things, but fundamentally I've been building code for like 15 years. I know what's needed as I'm building out technology. And I find that it slows me down because I'm also not really trying to build MVPs when I build stuff too often either. Like I'm trying to build long-term scalable out architecture. So I spend a lot of time actually writing code and then more time leveraging AI to help me with the second order and third order impact things like code revisions. Yeah. I know Jason about like vulnerability tests, things like documentation. And then like scaffolding, right? Like I don't need to write the 13th form interface, but like when it comes to core architecture, I always try to write probably 90% of it, and then leverage AI to maybe write some like boilerplate code, some really fundamental code that's going to exist in every repo.
Okay. How about you, Ash?
For my, I don't like to. Have you guys watched Schitt's Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And it's like I feel very much like him. He's like, I like the wine, not the bottle. But for AI, where it's like I literally will use what is best for a scenario, and I'm actually out there trying to try everything and experience everything. I think I have some subscriptions that I've forgotten about that I probably need to
show.
get in.
You should just write an
Tempo Labs. I'm like, I think I'm paying for like Tempo Labs. I'm paying for Replit. I'm paying for Lovable and Bolt because they both proven themselves to me, and I actually like to pit them against each other a lot for their initial prototyping. Because I think that they're going back and forth. I think that there's like an undercurrent of like whatever that is. Because like Bolt's technology is really sound, and one of the things that they do really well, and I can show you if you want, but it's like when you are doing the planning, it actually gives you like these follow-up explain more type of prompts that are like for a newbie or for somebody who doesn't really know that much, like who is willing to learn. It's great. Lovable is really, really good at that foundational being the orchestrator layer, which is why I'll default to it, where I'll go initial prompt, because you can get 5 free a day, to create a project. I can put it into my GitHub, and then I can use it from my GitHub wherever
Ash,
I want.
do you
So if I
want
want to pull it into VS
we're at a
Code.
point in this show where like getting on the screen and getting happy is probably not a bad thing to do. Is anybody opposed to letting Ash show a few things off and go through some of this process?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, the main thing I wanted to show when you guys were talking about, because like Jason was talking about his detailed prompting and how much success it takes to like, or how much detail and precision it takes to go into some of those things. And it's crazy how true that is, at the same time as also like, you know, to the leadership side of things, like encouraging it to think properly and like reflecting on what it actually knows and what it's actually got aware of. And so I like to, and one of the things I spent a lot of time on was using it to help me with it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Further, right? And so there's 2 things, right? Like mental models, like one of the things, like in my mind, I'll use people like that are notable people in society or in whatever, for whatever reason, like they're maybe the creator of React Flow, or like they're known for writing the book on UX design, right? And so just by saying their names, it's like you're packaging up a bunch of this context that it can then unpack and know how to come to a problem simply by saying a name. So it's like, I don't need to know how to tell it to think about the hooks that I don't know the names of, but I do know how to tell it to think like the person who does.
There's one that uses this very specifically that I think is a perfect example of this, and it is the bot app you made that allows us to get wonderful non sequiturs to reply back to people with terrible marketing ploys in our inboxes. Do you want to share that and at least use that as a one to start with?
I'll show that one. Yeah, that one I think. So it's really funny. Is that one I made? We were sitting around the table at Flow. And somebody was like bringing up something that was posted that like they were giving like crap to some founder in our industry for like calling them out for like a generic response. And I think like I just pulled it up. I pulled up Lovable and I was like, I already have talk about modularization benefit. I'm like, I already have a Cloudflare worker that I built for some other thing, and I can show that to you because it's got some things.
This was that centralization I was speaking about
there
earlier that Ash has already built, which allows you to have kind of a callable thing all the time that allows you to interface with LLMs from applications you built. Is that a fair approximation of it, Ash, of what this is, the Cloudflare worker?
Yeah. And so like with the Gemini one, like I can make it so that like most of the apps that I'll make, like the one that I was just looking at here, this one, like it you have to put your own API key in, and it's super easy to make. Like literally, you just like click a button, you click a button, you click a button, you click away, and then you're done. Like now I've got my API key. Boom. But
you need to burn that API key, Ash.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
I just
it was on the screen long enough.
Well, you couldn't see the whole thing.
It was somewhat obfuscated.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah.
We're just being your lovable friends here, making sure we're
I was showing you because of how easy it is. Like literally, like it wasn't like it's like short and boom.
Yeah.
But so I have it like in a it's in a secret.
And it's in just a compute worker, not in a AI worker.
All
right?
It's doing.
This is in the compute workers in Cloudflare.
All it's doing is just pulling in. All it's doing is pulling in the, I don't know why I saw it like this, but it's just pulling in the API key so that it's using my own API key because it's a lightweight thing. And then
Are Are you
have so
using
many
Cloudflare's
projects
secret
just go around.
servers there for that, for the hosting of the secret of the API key, or are you just hard coding it in this? Not to get too deep in it.
No, it's in here as a secret.
Very good.
So there's the setting here.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's in there as a secret. So the one that you guys were talking about was the
It was the one that used all the different
one.
poets and things that
Yep.
could, yeah, this is what the back end was, if I remember. Is this one? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So literally, I think all I did for this was that
Can you zoom in
I
just a
always
bit,
start
Ash,
with like,
for people?
Yeah,
Just
Control
a-
Plus
Oh,
several
sure.
times.
Also, by the way, while we're in this quick
Um,
lull, Mary, it's wonderful to see your beautiful face. I hadn't covered that yet, so great to see.
how do I my control?
Are you on a
hold
Mac? It's Command Plus.
Well, so I'm on a Mac, but I switched my control. Okay, here, I'll do it on this one.
Winning.
There
Here we
There
are.
we go.
Awesome.
So this was just all I did, like here, like it already knows how to use things really well. And so I just gave it the originally I just gave it, I said, hey, I want you to use like Gemini API key, right? And so like this is just the information that it needs. Like it already knows it, but I just gave it that information, and I said, when a person, where was I? When a person, this is what I want. When somebody pastes a message in there, I want to give them the option to have a few different things to respond with, and then.
Oh,
Okay, now we
my
need
key
to burn
there.
the API key. We're at the stage of burning
One
said
will
API
burn.
key now. And my camera died, which is cool.
But where's my that's the downside of this like copy thing that I've got here is I'm gonna take, where's the
hit us with a sample.
You should, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah,
There we go, quick. No, let's
Yeah.
go back for a sec because people might not have seen that. Hi, Ashley. I'd love to connect and see if you're open for a quick 15-minute chat about how our solution could revolutionize your outbound sales pipeline.
I'm
All right, cool. Yeah, I love it.
And so then you just choose the response
read
type,
these.
and then these are just set. Yeah, you can
Okay,
read
I'll
that.
read the first
show
one.
you
Hi,
how
Senator.
it's
Thanks so
fine.
much for reaching out. I appreciate you thinking of me and the potential for revolutionizing our outbound sales. It does make one wonder, though, what truly constitutes a revolution in the realm of commerce. Is it merely efficiency, or does it touch upon something deeper about how we connect and offer value to one another? Perhaps that 15 minutes can unlock just not sales strategies, but a glimpse of the very nature of transactional existence. Or maybe I just need more coffee.
I've had this client.
The Uno reverse sales counter pitch was one of my
Loved this
favorite
one.
ones that actually Amanda recommended. It's like, oh, you should put this in there for Dustin. So I did.
Thanks so
And
much
it's
for
like,
reaching out. It's definitely something we're always looking to improve. Actually, since you're so good at identifying optimization opportunities, I was wondering if you might be the right person to talk to about optimizing my collection of novelty staplers. I've got a real backlog of unique designs, and I'm looking for someone to help me streamline their display and usage. I'm confident that with your expertise, we can unlock unprecedented stapling efficiency.
And so those are just like, they just have each of the individual prompt.
Yeah, so these prompts are
And what's
passed with
funny
the
about it-
information from the first to the LLM on the back end, essentially. Is what's happening.
Yeah, they just use the Cloudflare worker as the API instead of the actual API. And then it was funny, I think these are the instructions for each of them, right? I wish I could make that wrapping, but there you go. You can see it now, sort of. I had to put in some details in the original prompt to specifically tell it to like not focus so much on animals.
Why? Oh, is that the name of this? Is this
you're
show going to
talking-
come up with the name of this show right now? Let's go. Why?
And so like I feel like I can't remember where it was, but there's probably in my original prompt, it was like, please stop mentioning squirrels and pigeons so much. For some reason, it just really, really wanted to like talk about the squirrels and the pigeons.
Yeah.
That
is why this is now lovingly called Squirrels and Pigeons, is the name of this show. So it's the HAI hackathon, right? But that's hard to say. So it's Squirrels and Pigeons.
Yeah.
So you built this in how long? What do you
So-
think? I mean, the thinking was
It was
6
like-
seconds, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes. What do you think? An hour in this, maybe?
I can show you.
Well-
Maybe.
While
Yeah.
she's finding that, I think that is a differentiator here, right? So like I mentioned earlier that it's quick to get an MVP. So it's very quick to take an idea and go, no, that could actually work, or no, that's a fucking stupid idea very quickly. You don't have to spend weeks building a scaffolded thing anymore that just to throw it away because it turns out it wasn't a viable idea. You can scaffold it really quick, and then if it actually works, actually spend some time on it.
Yeah. And you can see here, like, this isn't a me prompt. Like, I talk to ChatGPT quite heavily first before I give it prompts.
Yeah. No, explain that
to
one more time. So
specifically
before
make
it
sure.
being lovable and ChatGPT, you start in
Yeah.
first to get it to make you a plan that you send to lovable. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so I have two different ones that I'm playing with right now. I have to zoom this in again. All right.
All our old
So
eyes.
there's this is where I was. Is it tight enough? Okay. Yeah, so this one is this one's specifically for front end, like I was talking about, where it's like whatever I give it, I want it to think about these things that these specific people would think about. It knows these people because it was the one that helped me come up with them in the first place. So these are
I love that you quoted
well-established.
Frost for atoms and molecules, organisms, templates, and pages as the component hierarchy system using Frost. I love that you have. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent.
So that's Brad Frost. So he was like, so he has apparently like we could kind of like have a different topic about that, but like Dan Abramoff is like I don't know if he's like he's one of the like the main maintainers. I don't know if he's the creator of like the React, and specifically well known in state. And then Steve Krug is the guy who is the author of the book Don't Make Me Think. And so he understands what UX looks like and how visual consistency ties into your flow. And
how long
like
do we
like
think
that.
before these types of setups start getting created at the LLM level that's doing this type of work, right? Like, because this is pretty smart, but it's only solving a Band-Aid problem that the LLM can't take that focus.
It already exists, and that's what I'm doing with the MCPs.
Yeah.
And also the LLM was solved using these SLM kind of things like already to begin with, right? Like if we look at like, this is one, right? Where it's like, what was the history of like what our AI looks like today, right? Like we had rule-based natural language processing, and then we had like naive Bayes and a lot of these machine learning, deep learning things. Then we get into the world of transformers and like the T in ChatGPT, right? Like, and like what it is to like, tie in like these big broad scales, and it's like, but for people it's like they'll try to use an LLM for sentiment analysis, and it's like, guys, we learned sentiment analysis from the precursors to LLM.
Jason,
like they're the ones that,
not to cut you off, Ash, but Jason, you actually said this to a client when I was in the car. You're like, no, don't solve that problem with that. That's been solved a long time ago with machine learning. Like we're done with that natural
facial recognition.
Exactly.
Can we use AI to do facial recognition? I'm like,
yeah,
you
exactly.
can, but that's the wrong tool for the job.
You're like, why would I already have this solved? Somebody's done this in math.
Yeah, exactly. So I show this here too, right? And it's like, obviously there's like a lot of like, you can see like even in like our rule-based analysis, like we can do basic sentiment analysis type of stuff, but then you get into like some traditional analysis and like what things look like, and I built this using it because it knows these things, right? And so I'm like, I'm asking the questions, I'm being the naive Socratic.
For anybody watching at home, Ash
thing.
is now transferred over to application number 2 she has built, that we've seen at least in the count. So this is an app you built to talk about the change.
Run. This is fun.
This is awesome.
I wasn't going to share this one, but that's just funny to show you, like, sometimes we're using a sledgehammer to kill a fly when
Sure.
We should be using the sledgehammer to make the thing that will help us kill the fly.
Okay, fair.
But yeah, so that was just that one. And then, but this one's the one where I'm like, think from the beginning, think from think from first principles thinking, think from the various mental models that like will help you actually solve this problem. And then that's where we get into the thing that was like actually what I was talking about, which was the, might have closed it, this one, mental models. So like Jason was saying, right, like, it's like I can tell it all of the instructions, but so often I can also tell it remind it what it already knows, or how to think about how to go down the path that it already knows.
What do you use this for? Like, help me understand a use case where you'd use this.
Yeah, like if I'm having a problem where it's like you keep having this same problem with you're throwing this like runtime error, and you've changed this same file so many times, but you're not thinking about where the actual problem is. And by telling it, simply by saying use first principles thinking, it'll go, oh, you're right. I've been trying to solve for the symptom. Let me go check to see whether this is even installed in the first place. Right.
Yep. And it does it all the time. I have issues where to pass a test, it will make a change to a file, but that change to a file will not pass a linter. So then the linter will change it back, and it literally will just like, it doesn't, you have to remind it like, hey, you're being dumb here. Like you keep doing the same thing over and over again, approach this differently.
Yeah. And that's where the history, like, this one, like the circle of competence comes in really well. Like just simply by telling it, like, are you working within your simple circle of competence right now? Or be like, oh no, I'm actually like super outside of it. But this is the thing I made to help me, kind of like a chat GPT, where I can be like, what is my problem right now? And I'm like, just hit problem solving. And then I can give it like my,
and a lot of this for you, Ash, has been making the ability to inject somewhat system prompts around something before injecting it to Gemini in a web application form. Is that a decent classification of what's happening here? Anybody? Jason, John, Ash?
I think so.
Seems like it.
I got lazy with cut and pasting stuff, so I just started doing the thing she's doing as an MCP server. So what I really want to do is build an MCP server that can just talk to this back end.
And that's what I will, yes, because the other thing, like this was just giving me all of the guidance to go through. But if I were using Roo, for example, I can do like custom modes. I'm going to, if you tell me what to share, I'll share it. But they can do custom modes where it's, here's a person to work as. And so I want to make modes for each of those layers, because like telling it to look at everything is hard, but it's like, I want you to look at the passage of data through this, regardless of where it is. It's like, okay, like let's have this mode.
Yeah.
And then like, let's have the UI experience mode. And then let's have the state management mode.
And to full circle this, right?
Yeah, Jason.
To full circle this back to what John was talking about, like way at the beginning, where there's this line where it becomes easier to code it than dev it, is the project gets more complex. You very much start to run into the 32K context limit, right? Like it can't get enough of it in its memory at once to actually be able to view the problem holistically as a whole. So you have to use other things to distill it down to shrink the context required for it to understand.
Sure. And that can be done by having other things do the context management. Ash has done that and using other LLMs to bring back a rendered smaller thing. Jason, you've done that by using MCPs that give other LLMs the ability to reduce and make things smaller.
John was trying to interject there.
Yeah, go, John.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that's where I think there's applicable principles when I'm just sitting in a cursor repo that would just be usable for somebody that doesn't know their code base. Because I mean, when I'm looking at this problem, like, okay, well, you're doing what a developer would do here, and you're just using AI to do it. And in all of these areas, I think through, I mean, just simple API-driven software architecture with single purpose, single function, single context windows. What I've been really perplexed in my mind thinking about lately, and maybe I'm sending us down like this hypothetical conversation, but what is the future? What is the future software architecture look like that's built for AI tools to build at a rapid speed? Because it's not the same software design principles that I used 10 years ago to build my first software.
The future is headless.
Yeah, and I know that for sure.
Emit more.
You still got to build that core. You still got to build that like core infrastructure, that core architecture. design.
I like where you're going down this, John. Of like, think about this, and again, remember, I approach this with fairly ignorant eyes, right? Of this understanding of like, I've not been a developer. That isn't my world. And maybe we tackle this as another show topic since my camera decides it's time to quit right now. So I don't know that I can't. So I'm done. It's a whole day. I can't do this anymore. I quit. I also use Road Gear Streamer X specifically if anybody wants any more OSINT about me in my data set. No, but the point is, John, off on another topic we can maybe cover for next week for this purpose. But I got distracted about my camera dying, but it was such a fun thought.
Well, you
go back, John. Rewind me.
Yeah. Well, I think you get that fixed. I think the topic can be the max. Like, what's next generation software look like?
Yes. That was
how far does tools like Lovable take it? Because I think there's a lot of misnomer in the space where people go, "Oh, Lovable, I don't need developers anymore," and they're a little startup with a few people that have no idea what they're doing. And like, that's a topic.
That's a whole nother topic.
You need to rethink what developers are like and what their traditional skill sets are, but you definitely still need.
If I was a low-cost offshore development firm, I would be scared shitless right now because literally the ability to work with low-cost offshore development and get good output from them is the same skill set needed to make this
set that you're doing. Back to actually all the way back to Ash's leadership
thinking.
Conversation that this is, and I think maybe if I was summing up this show, it's really all about the mental models. Ash, you said this earlier today. It's about preparing the junior dev to do its job, to stay in its circles of capabilities. It's able to be doing the right mental model for what it's doing, that you have functions. Jason, we'll get into another time about your developer bot and review bot and QA bot and agent alpha that's doing all the things that are happening there. We're going to get into that another day. But this show in my mind was, and I think maybe that's the way we'll close these shows. In my mind, this show was us talking about the tools and the tech, but every commonality came to, I have to get this thing understanding what I want, contextualized and small enough of a frame that actually puts out the output I want, that still can maintain the size of these. Anyways, not getting off on a tangent. Somebody else want to summate what this show was about? And we'll kind of let AI see if it wants to compete with us in our summations at some point.
I think you're right. This was the foundation.
AI isn't smart, but you still have to be.
Yes. Yeah, and I've seen it a lot recently. Everyone's saying like AI is not going to replace your job, but somebody that uses AI may. Right, like
this was just today, by the way. The fake AI company.
That was today. If it was today, then it's the second one of them because there was one a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
there's a news article I read today of about a 2 billion or something. It was huge, but anyways, I digress. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was like turnkey or something. Yeah.
Something. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Sorry. Side tangent. Yeah. So Ash is a very simple summation of you still have to be smart. you can't be stupid. Go, John.
Mine is still what I said last week in a post. The best stack or the best tool in your stack is still human. I think it's still boiling down to that. We can get all these MCPs and all these things and all these architectures, all these infrastructure, all this self-replicating solution, but you still got to have what Ashley said earlier. You got to have a leader. You got to have somebody running the show.
And I'm building like a popcorn tracking thing that I'm going to have a use to Claude Code. And before I have it help me with any code, I've been going back and forth with Gemini and other things to make architecture decisions because I prefer Python. And it's like, does Fast API or Django make more sense? Like there's a bunch of architectural decisions that I want made before we ever start writing any code.
Use the right model. Gemini is so good with a lot of context, and it can be as good as Claude 4 if you give it enough context. But
one thing I've been thinking about, maybe you've got time for it, Jason, is hack away is like have it start with the database design. Like if when you start with the database design, you just end up with all the different data points that need to exist, all the different modules that need to exist.
The models.
Yeah.
I would start the models and then have it turn that into the database design. Yeah. Or the resources if you're doing a recipe.
I think we should separate that even again. We should have database designing and databases being decentralized from front ends. Well, like they can be made for each other, but they should be made in isolation of each other.
Cool.
Because then they can be used wherever they want.
Well, then I think we've summated the show, and we're at about 50 minutes, which is really long for one of these. And there's been so many people joining, so I think this is a topic worth exploring. This show was really about you got to have to manipulate the AI and use the right AI tool for the right job. I think Ash, your page really summates that of like, don't use a sledgehammer for something that a scalpel will do fine with. Use the sledgehammer to build your scalpels. I'm paraphrasing. I'm Ash paraphrasing, but it's not as good as Ash is. But then next week, I'd love to maybe chat about a couple things. John, you really triggered me on what you started to talk about, which was, traditional coding, you have waterfall, and then you have agile, and you have, and I'm really bastardizing this because remember I'm the ignorant one. Okay, so like make fun of me. But the point is, like, this could be a call for what does the future look like under models that would need to exist for AI assistive coding. And I love that topic because it gets real theoretical, and it's actually something that even somebody new can kind of poke into the challenges of. And I'm going to enjoy exploring that with y'all. So we'll see you guys and gals again in 2 or so weeks. I don't know when we're going to do this cadence, y'all. Is 2 weeks pretty decent?
2 weeks. Yeah. I think we'll be together potentially in 2 weeks.
What's 2 weeks? Oh, you and I will
Ooh,
certainly
that
be
could be fun.
together in 2 weeks, I think. I believe we'll be in your town in 2 weeks about this time. So we could sit down together in front of a camera.
Is that really 2 weeks away?
No, that's another one.
That's 3 weeks
well,
away.
sorry.
Yeah, that's 3 weeks away.
We will, all 4 of us, be
3
together
weeks.
at the end
We
of the
might
month.
actually have back-to-back episodes, y'all. I don't know what to predict here. That's
we
the
should do
beauty
that.
of AI. We'll figure it out. So
Cool. Okay.
thank y'all for all being here. Appreciate everybody. This is going to be a fun